Censor Studio, headed by Jung-sik Byok, reports that according to Newsweek, the Philippines is readying for a potential conflict with China. In the South China Sea, China has been continuously threatening the Philippines, and in response, the Philippines has been cooperating with Taiwan and showing efforts to keep China in check. Today, we'll examine this topic more closely. Let's begin. As you know, the conflict between China and the Philippines in the South China Sea is escalating. Due to this, the Philippines is attempting to depend on United States power. According to foreign media reports, including the Associated Press, the United States plans to construct 2 ship maintenance facilities in the Philippines. The United States Embassy in the Philippines stated that building these 2 ship maintenance facilities will strengthen cooperation between allies for a free and open Indo-Pacific. These 2 docking facilities are said to be able to service various small vessels about 73 meters in length. The facilities are being constructed near the South China Sea, where China and the Philippines have a territorial dispute, seemingly to keep China in check. Although these facilities are mainly for ship maintenance, they can also be used as supply warehouses. They can only service small vessels, so larger ships like warships cannot be maintained here. By using the supply warehouses, they could also serve as supply bases in case of an emergency. President Marcos of the Philippines, who took office in 2022, earnestly pursued a pro-American diplomatic policy in contrast to the pro-China stance of his predecessor Duterte. Following the change in administration, the Philippines has clarified its anti-China position by bolstering security ties with the United States and Japan. They legally define their territorial rights in the South China Sea. They are taking such a hardline stance that they've even hinted at sending troops to help Taiwan if China invades. These statements were made by key leaders of the Philippines, not just my personal opinion. Gilbert Teodoro, the Philippine Secretary of Defense, recently stated that denying Taiwan's security impacts on the Philippines is disregarding reality. Romeo Bronner, Philippine Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman, stated that if an incident occurs in Taiwan, intervention is unavoidable, and they are developing relevant action plans. Even Secretary of Defense Teodoro of the Philippines, he explained that the Philippines has the right to stabilize relations with Taiwan due to China's changes in the South China Sea. Despite the potential for provoking China's anger, the Philippines' attempts to appease China have achieved nothing. He elaborated on the reasons for stabilizing relations with Taiwan. The Philippines is currently showing signs of getting closer to Taiwan. According to a Washington Post report on July 14, Philippine defense scholars and high-ranking Taiwanese military officials met, discussed Taiwan's security situation, and agreed to enhance maritime cooperation. The Philippine and Taiwan Coast Guards are currently reinforcing joint patrols in the Bashi Channel, the border area between the 2 countries. The Philippines appears to be offering maximum support to Taiwan. Recently, South Korean, American, Philippine, and Japanese Marines conducted joint training in the Philippines. The Kamandag exercise, which included officers from the Taiwanese Navy and Marines as observers, took place recently. The Philippine military said the exercise wasn't aimed at any country, but experts explained it appeared to be a drill responding to a potential Chinese invasion of Taiwan. In addition, the Philippines and Taiwan are also becoming noticeably closer in diplomatic terms. The Philippine government has been very careful about official contact with Taiwan in the past, considering its ties with China. Under the One China policy, which doesn't recognize Taiwan, the Philippines strictly limited official meetings and exchanges with Taiwanese officials. As part of a balanced diplomacy to avoid upsetting China, the Philippines maintained this stance despite ongoing friction with China over the South China Sea. However, after Marcos became president, this position changed significantly. President Marcos removed restrictions prohibiting contact with Taiwanese government officials. This is not just a procedural change, but is interpreted as a strong message that the Philippine government will no longer rely solely on diplomatic pressure from China. Abolishing the measure that had served as an unofficial diplomatic ban marks the start of increased diplomatic cooperation between the 2 sides. Additionally, permitting Taiwanese citizens visa-free entry to the Philippines is a symbolically significant change. Economic reasons like attracting Taiwanese investment and boosting tourism were cited, but the prevailing view is that this measure has formalized and institutionalized relations with Taiwan, which is in conflict with China. This measure not only allows Taiwanese citizens to stay in the Philippines, but also ensures their safety and rights, providing an opportunity for Taiwan to gain significant security and diplomatic trust. These measures also bolster diplomatic support for Taiwan-Philippines military and security cooperation. Observations suggest that the 2 countries are moving past tourist exchanges and economic cooperation, establishing significant diplomatic ties. The shift in foreign policy is viewed as legitimizing the recently intensified military cooperation, joint patrols, and information sharing in strategic locations between the 2 countries, and as a coordinated diplomatic strategy considering the international community's attention. While these measures don't directly challenge China's One China principle, they imply recognition and cooperation with Taiwan's independent identity and ability to engage in security cooperation. China finds this a highly sensitive diplomatic move, prompting the government to issue public protests and warnings like "stop playing with fire." The Philippines' recent diplomatic shift is viewed as a strategic turning point in security diplomacy and a symbolic move forming a new axis to check China's power. Despite potential diplomatic tensions with China, the Philippines demonstrates a firm resolve to enhance its security and diplomatic independence. The reason the Philippines is going this far to keep China in check is simple. It's because China has been acting outrageously in the South China Sea. On July 15, a Philippine Coast Guard vessel encountered two Chinese maritime vessels while patrolling near Scarborough Shoal. The Chinese Coast Guard ship sailed close to the Philippine vessel for 30 minutes, threatening it. Chinese Coast Guard vessels have frequently been observed firing water cannons at Philippine ships. Both countries often engage in psychological warfare by releasing photos of themselves raising their national flags on South China Sea reefs. From the Philippines' perspective, China is indeed the biggest threat. So instead of bowing to China, the Philippines is trying to overcome the situation by strengthening cooperation with the United States and Taiwan and standing up to China. Also, the southern part of Taiwan and the capital of the Philippines are only about 350 kilometers apart in a straight line. With approximately 150,000 Filipino workers in Taiwan, a Chinese invasion would inevitably involve the Philippines indirectly. That's why they're strengthening their progress with Taiwan. The Philippines is bolstering its military capabilities, especially its naval power, which was insignificant just a decade ago. They had only 3 United States, provided Coast Guard patrol ships, and a few small patrol boats with machine guns. In 2022, when President Marcos took office, the Philippine military started strengthening its forces and rebuilding. President Marcos advanced a military modernization project, and so they started a large-scale military buildup. In particular, the cooperation between Korea and the Philippines stands out. Korea and the Philippines recently agreed to export 12 F/A-5 Zero light attack aircraft to the Philippines. The contract is worth $700 million, or about 1 trillion won. This is the largest defense export achievement in 2025. The ongoing upgrades to the F/A-50 light attack aircraft are enhancing their Air Force capabilities. The Philippines has imported $3 billion in Korean defense products over the last decade, becoming the top defense cooperation partner in Southeast Asia. For example, the Philippines imported 12 F/A-5 Zero light attack aircraft in 2014 and used them effectively to attack the Philippine rebels, so they are said to be very interested in Korean weapons. The Philippines Navy has ordered 2 Miguel Malvar-class anti-aircraft escort ships and 6 2,200-ton multi-purpose early ships from Korea. They are also introducing submarines, with Korean-made ones being strong candidates. The United States recently deployed its latest anti-ship missile system, Nemesis, in the Philippines. It is also known that Japan will export 6 decommissioned escort ships to the Philippines. 6 Abukuma-class escort ships are scheduled to be exported to the Philippines. Of course, since these escort ships have been in operation for over 30 years, it's unclear whether they will be useful against the Chinese Navy. For the Philippines, each of these old escort ships is important. This is not the time to be picky about what they get. China has strongly opposed and expressed concern over the Philippines' recent actions to enhance military ties with Taiwan, strengthen security alliances with the United States and Japan, and significantly increase its own military capabilities. The most direct statement came from Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Gao Jiakun. Spokesperson Gao Jiakun strongly warned through an official briefing that the Taiwan issue is at the core of China's interests, and urged the Philippines not to provoke or play with fire regarding the Taiwan issue. For China, Taiwan is not merely a diplomatic issue, but a symbolic matter of territorial integrity and national unity. From the Chinese government's perspective, foreign countries strengthening diplomatic or military ties with Taiwan is seen as a grave threat to China's existence and legitimacy. China views the Philippines participating in joint military exercises with Western allies like the United States and Japan alongside Taiwan as crossing an intolerable line. Despite China's warnings, the Philippines is strengthening its physical and institutional ties with Taiwan, seemingly to show defiance. China's actions are also growing increasingly aggressive. Hao Gang, China's Ministry of National Defense spokesperson, criticized the Philippines for destabilizing the region by aligning with America's war efforts. This diplomatic protest signifies a shift in viewing the Philippines as a strategic adversary. The phrase "tied up in America's entire war" suggests the Philippines is seen as America's subordinate, giving justification for military action. In fact, recently, physical clashes between the Chinese Coast Guard and the Philippine Navy have become more frequent in the waters near the Philippines, and incidents where vessels from both countries come dangerously close and nearly collide are happening repeatedly. China condemns these actions as provocations, while the Philippines counters that they are legitimate activities to protect its maritime sovereignty, and mutual criticism is escalating. China's extreme sensitivity and the Philippines' hardline independence are clashing, causing tensions in the South China Sea to reach a powder keg-like state. Of course, it's also ironic that China is reacting this way. The fact that the Philippines and Taiwan are cooperating and strengthening their military power is largely a result of China's own actions. China's aggressive actions in the South China Sea and rejection of the Philippines' outreach led to the Philippines cooperating with Taiwan and strengthening their military power. If you just think about how President Duterte pursued a pro-China policy, the answer is already clear. China's aggressive maritime expansion and diplomacy have driven the Philippines closer to the West and Taiwan. The Philippines continues to strengthen its military power, and they're even saying that they would get involved in the Taiwan issue if Taiwan is invaded. What are your thoughts on the current situation? Share in the comments. Thanks for watching.